Hey everyone, welcome. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. If you just want to kind of file in, and as you're jumping into the Zoom webinar, feel free to introduce yourself and share where you're streaming from, what New York City borough or neighborhood you're joining us from today. So we'll give it probably 1 or 2 minutes until we get a nice full group, and then we'll get started. Okay, I think we have a nice full group already joining us today. So let's give it a go. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Guillermo Gomez, Director of Programs at Urban Design Forum, one of the organizers of the New City Critics Fellowship. I'm joined by my colleagues, Mariana Mogilevich, Editor-in-Chief of Urban Omnibus, and then by my side, Ming Lin, Urban Design Forum's Program Coordinator for the Fellowship. If you're still getting to know us at Urban Design Forum, we connect and inspire New Yorkers to design, build, and care for a better city. We're a member-powered organization of 1,000 civic leaders committed to a more just future for the city. And we believe the built environment, so our health, our neighborhoods, our buildings, public spaces, and infrastructure shape our city's health and culture and economy. And what we do at the forum is we bring together New Yorkers of diverse backgrounds and experiences to learn, debate, and design a vibrant city for all. And we recognize that so few people have an opportunity to shape the public conversation on the future of New York City. And we want to see a kaleidoscopic coverage of on not only the marquee projects that are happening across New York, but also the transformation that we're seeing in neighborhoods. And we want writers to speak to the public and not just those of us engaged in design development on a daily basis. We want to see new, courageous, and informed voices emerge through this fellowship and really ignite conversation on our collective future. So thank you for being here. I hope you'll apply. I'll pass the mic briefly to Mariana first to share a little bit of some background on the fellowship.
Great. Hi, everyone. As Guillermo said, I'm Mariana. I am co-organizer of the fellowship along with Guillermo and Ming and editor-in-chief of Urban Omnibus. For those unfamiliar, Urban Omnibus is the Architectural League of New York's online publication dedicated to observing, understanding, and shaping the city. And Urban Omnibus and New City Critics, along with the Urban Design Forum, are programs of the Architectural League, an independent forum that supports critically transformative work in the allied fields that shape the built environment and stimulates thinking, debate, and action on today's converging crises of racism, inequity, and climate change in service of a more livable and just world. I am going to give you a little bit of background on the New City Critics Fellowship. The League and Urban Design Forum created New City Critics in honor of Michael Sorkin, who was a beloved board member of both of our organizations. Michael's death was a huge loss to the world of thinking and action and architecture and the shaping of cities and landscapes. He was a spectacularly good writer, fearless and funny, and uniquely adept at exposing and explaining the systems of power that create the built environment and how they manifest in specific projects. Michael was also a mentor and a publisher for so many young thinkers and writers. And so we continue to host and sponsor the fellowship in his honor. So our call this year is for the third round of our New City Critics Fellowship. We launched the fellowship in 2022 with an inaugural cohort of 6 fellows who you can see at a public program on the left. And we will be wrapping up work with our second cohort who began last September and who you can see at a field session on the right. This coming month on June 17th, we'll have a final celebratory public event debuting a new print publication of their writings and a conversation with the fellows. So I hope you can join us then. And now I'll pass it to Ming to share more about the fellowship itself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ming, the program coordinator for New City Critics Fellowship. So what is New City Critics and why should you apply? This fellowship hopes to address two issues at once. On the one hand, legacy media continues to shrink and full-time critics are disappearing. And even since we started this fellowship, we're continuing to see newspapers and magazines shrinking in number altogether. Second, a small circle of voices dominates the existing conversation with attention to limited topics and a narrow vision of what cities can be. So this all means that there are fewer accessible, compelling stories interrogating how cities are made and for whom. And still, the critical writing that remains and is in some ways extremely powerful. Justin Davidson and Michael Kimmelman in New York can sway a lot of thinking. Christopher Hawthorne in LA moved from being the architecture critic of LA Times to being chief design officer for the city government. But are a small group of critics with rare prominent platforms attending to the full extent of systems, spaces, and projects that define the very contours of our lives. So the need for diverse perspectives become especially clear when we consider some of the emblematic issues facing New York City today, such as how new city policies like City of Yes are reshaping the future of urban design and the housing of our neighborhoods citywide, the impact of major investments in street redesigns, particularly at the city's core, the role that new casino proposals are playing in neighborhood development and politics, especially in historic immigrant communities, or how we're seeing growing investment to redesign MTA turnstiles aimed at suppressing fare evasion. So these are by no means coextensive of the range of subjects of inquiry that we hope to see with the new city critics. But if an essential goal of criticism is to see more deeply and help an audience of readers or viewers understand why something matters and what its origins and impacts are, all of these and many more are topics that should be examined and written about from a diverse range of perspectives and life experiences. So this year, our cohort tackled a range of subjects, including the phasing out of the subway's beloved Tang seats, an investigation into the legality of Louis Vuitton's luxury scaffolding, and reflections on various public artworks. For their final projects that will be debuting at our June 17th event, fellows will be publishing longer form essays on commemorative landscapes and monuments, as well as local landmarks and queer ecologies. I'm going to pass it back to Joe to share who we're going to do in this next cycle.
Cool, thank you, Ming. So we are really excited to build our third cohort of New City Critics Fellows. And this fellowship is, again, as much of an exercise of redefining critical writing about the city as it is about shaping a new group of fearless voices. We often find ourselves in the design or academic profession, maybe talking amongst ourselves in very siloed spaces. So how are we communicating the issues we care so deeply about in cities to new and broader audiences? So today we want to point out who we're hoping to engage with our next cohort. We're inviting applications from early to mid-career writers and urbanists deeply committed to making cities legible for broad audiences. And candidates should possess experiences in both writing and urban practice, though we expect the balance obviously to vary from candidate to candidate. And we really encourage submissions that demonstrate prior publication and significant engagement in those fields. Perhaps you're a designer or urban practitioner by day with a deep passion for writing on the weekends and looking for opportunities to build a larger and deeper portfolio of critical writing. Or you're a published scholar or journalist with deep interest and focus on the way neighborhoods are designed and developed. We think those that straddle these two areas will see really the greatest benefit of the fellowship's offerings. In addition, we want to welcome storytellers of, again, varying ages and experiences. So, of course, writers and journalists and designers, but planners, scholars, advocates, artists, curators, organizers, DIY newsletter makers, zine publishers, podcasters, photo essayists. The list kind of can really go on and on. I think we want to be as nice as possible with those bringing writing experience. And I think all those that apply, I think we want to see a commitment to producing critical work about the shape and experience of our city. You should also want to build a community. We aim to build a cohort of 6 individuals, again, who will lean on each other's curiosities and grow together. And beyond support in developing their own individual projects and skills, applicants should be really searching for co-conspirators to broaden their understanding and imagination of the city. And then lastly, fellows must live and work in the New York metropolitan area for the duration of the program to be considered. Our bi-weekly Monday sessions will be meeting in person at either the league or the forum's offices. So remote participation is not an option. If you're not based in New York City, when applying, we'll ask that you provide proof or a plan of demonstrating your commitment to be in New York City during the fellowship in your submission materials. I'll swing it on over back to Ming to share more information on the format and the timeline.
So these dates on the screen were also included in the Award Force application portal. Fellowship applications are open for another 2 weeks. So the due date is June 12th at 11:59 p.m. We will notify applicants by the first week of August, whether you've been selected to participate in our cohort of 6 critics. And the fellowship will kick off orientation on Friday, September 5th, and will run through June 2026 on a bi-weekly basis, as Guillermo mentioned, and in person on Mondays at the League or the Forum, ending with a celebratory event in mid-June. The fellowship is organized in modules with each focus on developing a specific critical skill and new written work. Modules will focus on reading critical texts on the city, writing about urban places and projects, writing with and about actors in city making, and reviewing texts, objects, and events. Fellowship sessions will include conversations and workshops with guest writers, editors, advocates, practitioners, and change makers in the built environment. In the first and second cycles, our interlocutors included writers, journalists, editors, and scholars such as Garnet Cadogan, Carolina Miranda, Suk-Jung Hong, Alexandra Lang, Tanvi Misra, Karina Devaya-Shorsky, Mabel Wilson, Mazen Sidamed, and Emily Badger. In other sessions, fellows will develop and workshop their writing together. Fellows will complete regular writing assignments and publish selected work in a dedicated New City Critics newsletter and on Urban Omnibus. So here's what we're offering. Fellows will receive $7,500 honorarium for participation in the fellowship. We designed the fellowship to accommodate participants' employment elsewhere, given that you'll only be meeting on a bi-weekly basis. We will meet twice a month in the evening for workshop and discussion sessions that include workshops focused on critical voice and craft and strategies and tactics for publishing and the media world, editing workshops with outside editors, and with the cohort, editorial support from Urban Omnibus and New City Critics teams to shape, refine, and produce original works of publication. And throughout the fellowship, we're aiming to connect participants with leading critics and editors, built environment professionals, or cultural institutions that are aligned with their interests and lived experiences. So the goal is to equip a new generation of critics from underrepresented backgrounds with new skills and a meaningful network, and to support them in carrying out powerful writing that makes urban processes legible and argue for a city they want to live in. We also see this fellowship in terms of beginning to shift the broader culture of critical writing about cities, not just about investing in and publishing 6 people, but about a cohort working together to host a bigger discussion about the future of the city and critical writing. This upcoming year, we're also planning to run public programming alongside the fellowship in order to open up these dialogues that we're having in our sessions to a bigger audience. So we're looking to the New City Critics Fellows for critical attention to the ways we plan and design and live in cities, and for the development of a new critical imagination that can manifest in new formats, new forums, and help the public understand the rich and complex and also fraught urban spaces and processes that give shape to our experiences.
Cool. So I'll walk you through a little bit about the application portal. So the link to access that portal can be found on the Urban Design Forum website, the Architectural League website, and on Urban Omnibus's website. You'll need to register your email to submit the application process, or even to get into the workforce. So you'll provide your contact information, and we'll also have a voluntary self-identification form. And you will be required to submit a resume or CV, writing samples, and respond to some prompt questions about you and your work. So we're requesting for a statement of interest of 500 words, and we ask that you tell us about a piece of writing on cities or a contemporary phenomenon or issue in the city in the last year that has really sparked your strong reaction, whether in agreement, critique, or just curiosity. And then we also want to learn a little bit more about you. Who are you and what motivates you to write about cities? And what are you reading? Really are very curious to know what you're reading around city design, development, or the built environment that resonates with you. We want to understand also your perspective on current urban writing and learn about the ideas and values that are driving your work. So these opportunities to submit it's an opportunity to share the conversations you're already engaged in, the critiques you have, and how you position yourself in the broader discourse of cities. We want you to submit one writing sample of published work that should not exceed 3,000 words, which should give us a sense, again, of your interests, curiosities, and perspectives. You may include multiple short works or an excerpt from a longer work. And the way we define published is, I think, a little bit more broadly. The piece should be intended for a public audience and may appear in a print or online journal, newspaper, media outlet, or a newsletter, maybe such as Substack, or another program that's really focused on reaching the public and has reached the public. So we also welcome a second sample, and you can submit either another piece of writing, again, published or non-published, that doesn't exceed the word count, or for that second submission, you can submit another medium that could be audio, video, or some type of visual storytelling that demonstrates your voice, vision, or point of view. So a little bit about the selection process itself. Award force applications, again, are going to close on June 12th at 11:59 p.m. Unfortunately, no late submissions, so please submit on time at 11:59 by 11:59 p.m. And then our upcoming New City Critics cohort is going to be selected by this incredible selection committee of writers, journalists, scholars, and editors that include Suk-Jung Hong from Curb, Barnett Cadigan, Anthony Rao, Sam Maldonado from the city, and a former New City Critics alumni from our first round, Sabina Safiguni. And then New City Critics program staff will also conduct 30-minute interviews with the semifinalists at the end of July, and then selected New City Critics will be notified in early August. So I think those are kind of all of the general overview that we have. And I think what we can plan to do is open it up for questions. So let's give it a couple of seconds so that folks can kind of start including questions. Either the Q&A box would be preferable, but whatever's easiest for you all, and then we'll kind of start fielding some questions. So Mariana will also join us back on screen and we'll answer some questions. This is very easy one. Yes, there will be a recording of this info session, and that will be included online on all of our websites within the next week. Okay, great. So the questions coming in. Maybe we'll answer this one. What time or Monday sessions? Monday sessions, we're gonna continue from that we've been doing this past year from 6 to 8:30 p.m. And again, all of those dates are included already on the Workforce application portal.
I'm seeing a couple of questions about additional submissions. One, would a portfolio style document be acceptable for the second writing sample? And related but disappeared question about social media, which maybe that's disappeared. So what we really want to see this in the between the two samples is work that's going to give us a good sense of your writing style, and engagement with the kinds of questions that would be engaging with in the fellowship. So a portfolio style document, not to get too specific, sounds how could I say this? I mean, probably not, in the sense that we really are looking for you to be really precise about the work that you're giving the selection committee to focus on and get the best idea of the way that you think and write or possibly communicate in other forms. But a design portfolio would not really be appropriate. seeing a related question about what we're looking for in the writing sample. I mean, I think and a question about writing samples on adjacent issues. So yes, one of the reasons that you've got two samples is because we want to understand you and your work as a writer, and also you're thinking about the city. There's room for both. So a writing sample that does not directly take on issues in the built environment is fine. There are other spaces in the application to talk about those issues as well. Yes, like we do want to see what you think are the best examples of your written and published work.
Okay, here's an easier one. Are city employees eligible to apply? Yes. And will there be interview process for shortlisted candidates? Yes, as I mentioned before, in late July, for the short listed candidates, program staff will be conducting very short interviews, and then we'll be notified in August of this year. Feel like I'm seeing a couple on time commitments. Inside of more time commitments, and I think I saw another one earlier on timing of those meetings and commitments, working full time, and would they be after work hours? So I mean, again, I think maybe open it up to all three of us, but I think we really intended in shaping this fellowship as a part-time opportunity. If you're already engaged in another a professional commitment. Again, these are 2.5 hours on a bi-weekly basis, but I think we're for the sessions, but there's still a heavy involvement in kind of reading and preparing for the sessions and writing. So I don't know if Mariana or Ming want to share a little bit more about kind of the level of commitment that you're seeing from this cohort.
I guess
Yeah.
the question is about like when, if like, I mean, yeah, this timing has been designed to accommodate work schedules. And I'll say that we do include a meal with that as well. So hopefully you're able to make it and feel sated and be ready to engage in 2.5 hours of conversation and workshop. Yeah.
I'm seeing a few questions about writing experience. Would we consider undergraduate students? Is it fair to say if you don't have any published writings, but you're interested in starting down that path, this fellowship isn't aimed for you? I'm only just starting planning school and have no public writing yet, too soon to apply. I would say, that it's a really writing intensive fellowship, and we are looking for people who already have developed a practice and some experience in that work. So if this is really your first time tackling that kind of work and writing for a public, it probably is too soon. We are asking for published work and a demonstrated commitment that can come in different forms, but this should not be your first time exploring this direction. Questions though about writing samples along those lines, would a public blog or an interview count? Absolutely. We really are open on what kind of work that is. We do just want to see some experience and a track record with writing as part of your practice, even if it hasn't been the center of it.
A question here actually in the chat, is this opportunity open to online since we're meeting twice monthly? I think the goal is to have the cohort meet in person. And I think that's a requirement. I think as much as this is about supporting individual writers, we're really trying to build a cohort of 6 in a community. And I think having a hybrid, it's not kind of conducive to building a cohort. So we're requiring folks be in person for these meetings. Let's see.
There are also a few questions about experience in urban practice, and I think Similarly in a way with the writing, we're certainly not expecting, or there are no requires for some kind of, degree or professional experience in the field, but some way of demonstrating, that you are conversant with, interested in, have engaged in some substantive way with the kind of questions that we're looking in terms of content to explore in the fellowship. So experience in urban practice, again, I think as we've said, that can vary. And there's, again, room in the application to articulate that, whether it's been a field of study or of work, or perhaps, volunteering, or I think there are many different forms. A topic in an art practice, there are different forms that might take, but prior writing practice and some form of prior engagement with city making is what we're looking for, and what we found is most productive for the fellows in the fellowship.
There's a question about the expected end product of the fellowship. And so, as I mentioned, this fellowship is structured in modules, and throughout those modules, we'll be doing kind of writing exercises that will, some of them will end up being published on an urban omnibus special vertical for the New City Critics. And then we'll be working towards longer form essays with each of the fellows that will then be published in both a print. It's a little bit, I think we'll like kind of shape it as a cohort, but they will be presented publicly, perhaps physically in a print object, but definitely publicly in an event in June. And then they will live online on the Urban Omnibus site after that.
Here's a piece in the chat. Do the writing samples need to be New York City focused? Not necessarily, and maybe I'll open up to the both of you, but I think if you have writing experience about other cities, I think we absolutely welcome that. I think we just want to learn about your curiosities too. I will say that all of the current New City Critics Fellows have been writing about New York City during the fellowship. So I think we do definitely want the fellows to be engaging with New York City themes, issues, and topics during the fellowship.
So here's a question to talk a little bit more about the program sessions, how discussions are formatted and who leads them. Do members of the cohort workshop each other's writing, as well as the program director or practicing critic? The answer to that is all yes. The program sessions, for the most part, take 2 or 3 forms. Which are usually it is a kind of seminar style discussion. We have guests share work, writers share their own work and work that's important for them in advance with the fellows. There's a good amount of reading required in preparation for the session. So everyone comes in ready to engage with the writer on their work. They do vary, not so much in format, but the direction that they take. Some guests will have formal presentations on, particular issues and skills. Others will be more informal conversations. We have outside critics and editors come and workshop the fellows' work. We also reserve a number of sessions for workshops among members of the cohort and with the program team. So they build on each other around each module in the writing assignments, and have sort of ample informal space for discussion with guests and with each other, both on other people's writing and the work in progress in the fellowship itself. Field trips, it's very hard with a Monday evening session to do that extensively, but we have normally incorporated at least one in the course of the fellowship meetings themselves. And we have two longer retreat and orientation sessions that might be offsite as well.
Here's a fun one. Again, we're still building an incredible community of alumni, but could you share some information on what past New City Critics Fellows are up to? Maybe share two highlights. One, alumni that's participating in the selection committee panel, Sabina Setiuni, who continues to write and publish, has continued, I think, a new piece afterwards in Urban Omnibus, and most recently a new piece through the Asian American Writers Workshop. So, and then continues to produce work in other formats as well, such as theater projects. And then Oscar Periabello just published a book in the past year on community banking. So alumni are working on great things, and I think what we want to do is continue to build an amazing alumni network, given that we're going into the third cohort. So I think that network will only strengthen in the years to come.
And I think there was another question about supporting the fellows after the fellowship.
Yeah.
Opportunities to like stay connected. And then there was another question about like public programs dimension that we're hoping to kind of develop the next cycle. And I think those are related. So the idea is that like throughout the 9 months, there will also be public events that also alumni are invited into that can like kind of create and like build on the conversations that we're having as a cohort and beyond. So yeah, we're hoping to like design it as such to keep everyone like abreast of the current conversation and involved. So.
Wonder if you could share a little bit about kind of how long the writing assignments are. Again, they vary from module to module, but maybe to.
Sure. I mean, the way that it's worked this year and it will in the next round, and I think in terms of expectations, we really are focusing on, and I think the fellows have found it really helpful to use the fellowship as a sort of tool to get into a regular writing practice. So we have sort of cumulative assignments across modules. Some will be kind of shorter explorations that help build up to a longer piece. This time around, I think there were four total across the length of the fellowship, three within the modules, and then a final piece of the fellow's choice, going as long as 2,000 words for the final one. But we are focusing on shorter and incremental assignments from week, well, every 2 weeks to every 2 weeks. So it will be writing intensive.
I just want to add one more thing about what I was, I mean, so also if you are a fellow, I don't know if this is mentioned in the application, I can't remember, but like then you receive a membership for both the forum and the league for that year. And so it's also an opportunity to connect with members from those two organizations. And like the public events are also an opportunity for us to invite members that we also think can connect with your work. So that's another way that like the networking, I guess, aspect of the fellowship can be considered.
Here's an interesting question, if I may, which is asking about the use of AI tools for grammar check, proofreading, or other things. I'm going to go ahead and say no. This really is a fellowship focused on the art and craft of writing and personal expression, and it is not okay to be using AI assistance on the application or in the assignments unless that is a really intentional formal experiment.
I've seen this question come up in maybe various forums around other mediums besides writing, and we'll give you kind of opportunities to engage with that. I think there will be, I would say for the most part, and I think both of you agree, writing is kind of the anchoring medium of the whole fellowship. But I think there will be opportunities, especially in the last module, to explore other forums. So I think if you do bring experience in those other mediums, bring them to the table. But I think again, writing is really going to be kind of the anchoring medium for the full year.
Yeah, I will add though for questions about photography, podcast, audio, that we are building in room for experimentation with that and thinking about shorter interstitial assignments over the course of the fellowship that might engage more media. So I think like very much encouraged. But the principal support through the fellowship that we're best positioned to offer is going to be for writing. I'm seeing still maybe a few more questions about writing samples, maybe like a couple of different categories. One is about uh, how old they can be, and another one I think we're seeing questions about reports and um, student work. There is not really a a particular like date window cutoff. We really want to see work that represents your best work and your current interests. I think to the question about planning reports, graduate theses. Again, we're looking for experience with writing that is intended to reach a public of some sort. So we would really prioritize work that is written in a less professional mode, as what we'll be doing in the fellowship is working in more critical nonfiction journalistic registers. I know there was a question there too about room for sort of more experimental style. Absolutely. I think within that there will be a lot of room in the assignments for people to really hone and develop their own voices and styles.
Here's one about co-authoring. Are co-authored works acceptable to include as a writing sample? I'm going to say for the first writing sample, it should be your own. And I think the second sample could be co-authored. Would you agree with me, Mariana? Yeah.
I think so, as long as it's really clearly articulated what your role has been and the process.
Exactly.
Mm.
Lots of great questions.
I mean, here's just a small technical one. Can we select fellows who are on student working or working visas and are not American citizens? I believe the answer to that is yes. We cannot sponsor people for visas as part of this program, but if you have a visa to be here and work, you're absolutely eligible for the fellowship. Here's maybe a question. How do we support the community of fellows to advance in their writing career and moving forward professionally afterwards? Um, so, I mean, I think we've talked a little bit about the not just desire, but I think we're actively working on, growing not just this year's or next year's individual cohort, but a larger group of fellows who can really lean on and work with and grow with each other. The public programs are a big part of the opportunities to stay connected, not just just with the other cohorts of fellows, but with friends, supporters, guests of the program. So we really try to build ample opportunity to, as we said earlier, sort of expand your network that can support you, both in terms of writing professionally, but in terms of access to experts and information for the kinds of things that you're writing about. So past fellows do stay connected through public programs, and we do emphasize in the general, orbit of the program and through sessions connections with editors and others who you'll be able to continue being connected to and relying on after the fellowship is over. The idea is that really it's a 9-month commitment as a group, but we're trying to build relationships that will last much longer.
Here's a question on the short responses from the application. Are those intended to get a feeling for what we want to write about in the fellowship, or will we develop our eventual topics during the sessions? I think it is a window into what you're very interested in. I think that's the point, but I think, and even the follow-up question, do we have to specifically know, what we want to write about, or are you trying to understand more so what were you curious about generally in the built environment? I think probably the latter. I think it helps coming in with a specific general interest, a specific interest. But I think the point of the fellowship is to deepen an opportunity around exploring different themes and concepts and formats during the year. So coming in with a general interest to explore is probably will be the best candidate.
Yeah, we don't want you, pre-committed to anything too particular, but are really trying to kind of get a sense of your interests, your curiosities, your commitments as a thinker and writer. Maybe to that, this very general question about some of the things that we're looking for in a grade application. I think we're looking for people who really want to write and love to write or work in related formats, and really where there's again, like commitment and interest and excitement to be doing that work regularly, and exploring different approaches, picking up different skills that might be outside of the way that you normally work. So, I think a great application will demonstrate a distinctive voice, a real sort of engagement with the communication, and an interest in having a dialogue and expression through writing, as well as really interesting perspective, keen observation of the city that we're living in today, the kind of processes that build it, the structures and built environment that we're living in and shapes our lives. It's really it's really the kind of combination of both, but we're looking for people who are deeply curious, who are, tenacious and excited about finding stuff out, who are, critical in what they look at, but also willing to be critical, explore, and rethink or be open around their own work, to grow and change over the course of the fellowship. So those are, I think, some of the things that we hope to see also in the application, just in terms of your writing, in terms of the things that you're thinking about, the kind of things that you're reading or looking at and want to respond to. The statement of interest, where we're asking you to both kind of show us something that you're interested in, the kind of questions that kind of light a fire under you, and how you take those on in writing is a really good opportunity for that.
Maybe to answer this you mentioned that selection is focused on a specific cohort. What goals do you have regarding the composition of this cohort? I think we take that very much into consideration and kind of in the later process of the selection, while we're kind of assembling the group of 6. So I think finding a balance of backgrounds, interests, and experience is really key to establishing and creating a wonderful cohort. But I would say that that happens more towards the later process of the selection, after the interview process. Maybe we take just one more, Mariana, and then I think again, what I'll state is we're gonna download all these questions and plan to share a frequently asked questions page that will go live with the video of this recording as well. So we're gonna do our best to answer as many questions as possible today, and then include the ones that we've missed and that are relevant in that FAQ.
I feel like we're I feel pretty good about what we've covered.
Okay. That sounds good. So I'm gonna include some important dates on the screen as you all are filing out and headed to lunch. Again, the application deadline is Thursday, June 12th. And that should say 11:59 p.m., not 11:50 p.m. So you'll have an additional 9 minutes to submit. And then if you have any questions on the workforce application portal, if you have any issues or additional questions as a result of this webinar, feel free to send those to submissions@urbandesignforum.org. Again, Thursday, June 12th, 11:59 p.m. is the deadline. No late submissions, and then for additional questions, again, send that to our submissions inbox. I'll leave these dates on the screen, but we're looking forward to reading all of your applications and excited to build our next cohort of New City Critics. Thanks all for joining us today, and please join us at our Fellows' final celebration and the publication of their most recent pieces and a conversation with the Fellows on
June 17th.
June 17th, yes, and you can find those dates and information, and you can RSVP on all of our websites, Urban Omnibus, Urban Design Forum, and Architectural League. Thanks so much.